Hello everybody, I am Tom and you are watching me play Warframe. Today we're going to go over my Titania build. This is my Titania, I think she looks really cool. I have the, one of the few Tenogen Sciendanas I actually have is this butterfly wing here, which I actually bought for Titania, just for, you know, Queen of the Fairies. Give her some wings, why not? But first things first, let's go over her abilities as always. Firstly we have a passive. When you bullet jump, you create a quote-unquote trampoline that lasts 5 seconds, and it makes anyone else who jumps from that same spot get their bullet jump 25% better. Essentially they can jump further and faster if they jump off the same spot you did. It's nice, I suppose. It's one of the ones where you don't really notice it that often, but it's cool when it happens. Spellbind. First ability. Enemies will fumble with their weapons, and they're whisked up into the air, so they sort of float up into the air uselessly. Also, you give yourself and nearby allies immunity to status effects, which is nice. It doesn't last a whole hell of a long time, on my build 23 seconds, but, you know, status immunity is always good, so I actually use it more for the status immunity than I do for actually, like, hitting enemies, so I guess the status immunity is probably good if I use it more for that than anything else. Next, we have Tribute. This has a bunch of different buffs on it, and honestly, I don't even know what half of them do. Alright, so a second ability is Tribute. I had to look up what these buffs do, because I never use them, and I find them kinda pointless. However, what you do is you cast this on an enemy, and they sort of float into the air, as you can see in the little tooltip there, and they leave a little buff behind, so you can go pick up that buff. Thorns is a reflective buff, so whenever enemies hit you, they take 50% of the damage back on themselves. Dust is like a debuff for the enemy. It makes them less accurate, so you're 50% harder to hit. Full Moon is a buff to the damage of all of your companions, so your sentinels, your dogs, your cats, any of that thing. And Entangle is just a slow on all the enemies. I very rarely, if ever, use her second ability. But I mean, again, all of those are good buffs, so they're worth it. It's just that I tend to find just killing things is easier. Her next ability is Lantern. Again, one that I pretty much never use. Although, again, strictly speaking, a good ability. You, like, send an enemy up into the air and they kind of float around uselessly. They become immune to damage. You can sort of push them around by shooting them. But when they're up there, they will attract the attention of other enemies who will walk towards them and take damage. So it's kind of a distraction. Again, the problem I find with this is that just killing the enemies is easier, which you can do very easily with her 4. Her 4 is Razor Wing. You turn into like a little tiny fairy and you kill stuff. She comes with 2 main weapons with this. She has a melee weapon, which is crap, never use it. And she also comes with her Dex Pixia, which are little sort of twin pistols. And they're all modded separately, which we'll go over when we go over the mods. But that's pretty much it. Essentially the way I use her is I spellbind occasionally, and I use Razor Wing. That is pretty much it. As I said, I can go over the build now. I'll go over the Dex Pixia and the Duwata first, just so I don't forget. My Duwata build is right here. Is essentially just a crit build with some status added on top. So we have Prime Pressure Point, Prime Reach, Gladiator Might, for critical damage. I should go over these. Melee damage, range, Gladiator Might for critical damage, Organ Shatter for more critical damage, Sacrificial Steel for critical chance. We then have Voltaic Strike and Virulent Scourge for toxin damage and electricity damage respectively, as well as status chance. And you can swap these out for whatever you want as far as damage goes. I've got it on Corrosive currently, but you can have it on pretty much anything with these because they all cost 7. And then we have Prime Fever Strike for just more toxin damage. That's the Duwata. I never use it, so it's kind of irrelevant. Next is the Dex Pixia. These, on the other hand, I have a couple of builds for. These are all built for status, and critical. The status build, Hornet Strike, Lethal Torrent, Barrel Diffusion, Prime Heated Charge. That is the same on both of these builds. The only difference here is the order that I have these 4 mods at the bottom, Frostbite, Scorch, Pistol, Pestilence, and Jolt. Change around the order of these, so you can have either Corrosive and Blast, or Radiation and Viral. And this will give you essentially 100% status chance, so you're going to be doing status procs every single time you hit. And then finally for the critical build, we have Hornet Strike, Prime Target Cracker for critical damage, Prime Pistol Gambit for critical chance, Creeping Bullseye for critical chance at the cost of some fire rate, Lethal Torrent for multi-shot and fire rate, Barrel Diffusion for multi-shot, Anemic Agility for a bunch of fire rate at the cost of a little bit of damage, and then Razor Shot just for extra slash damage, because these are mainly slash damage in the first place. As you can see here, 350 on the other two and 2,700 on the slash. So that extra 60% is quite good. Puts it up to 4,000 slash damage, which is quite nice. And we're sitting on 31% critical, and they hit a lot, so 31% critical is a fair amount of crits. But for this test I'm going to go Corrosive and Blast, simply because going against mainly Grineer are the issue, so Corrosive is just useful. But for the build on Titania herself, we've got this. Corrosive Projection here, just because armor sucks. It's the main reason. I was actually thinking about potentially putting on Growing Power on here instead. The problem with that is I don't think her Dex Pixia work with Growing Power. Because it says applying status effects with weapons increase ability strength by 25% for 6 seconds. I don't believe her Dex Pixia count as weapons, quote unquote. I think Exalted weapons don't count under this. I could be wrong, and if I am, it's possibly worth putting Growing Power in instead. But I like Corrosive Projection generally anyway, so I'm going to go with that. Next we have Power Drift, so that adds ability strength plus a chance to resist knockdown. It's here for the ability strength, that's the only reason it's here. We then have Umbral Intensify, Umbral Vitality, which give us ability strength and health, respectively. I usually have it that way. I'll just for consistency's sake, it's usually the way I have it. Vitality first. We then have Prime Continuity for ability duration. Prime Flow for a bunch of more energy, so our actually energy pool is larger. Transient Fortitude, which gives us a bunch of strength and takes away some of that ability duration. We then have Streamline for some efficiency, Augur Secrets for more strength, and Augur Message for a bit more duration. So, as this build goes, the actual casting of Razorwing costs next to nothing, it's like under 20, and the energy per second is only 2.39. As always with most of these energy per second drains on all these abilities, it's a combination of both efficiency and duration, which is why we have some duration on this build. Also, the duration helps with Spellbind as well, because it increases that duration for the status immunity just a little bit, which is also quite nice. Because without it, it's very, very short. Slightly over 20 seconds is pretty good. I think at base it's about 15. So it's much nicer to have that little bit extra. Arcanes, we've got Arcane Aegis and Arcane Velocity. I'll go with Arcane Aegis as well, why not? Arcane Aegis, when you take health damage, there's a chance that your shields will recharge. Just gives a tiny bit more survivability, and I like the Arcane, which is why it's here. And Arcane Velocity. On a critical hit, there's a 60% chance that your fire rate for pistols goes up. And as far as I can tell, this does work on the Dex Pixia. It was interesting when I was, I googled whether or not it worked, because I couldn't fully tell, and I got mixed messages. Some people saying it does, some people saying it doesn't. From my testing, it seems to work. But if it doesn't, someone let me know, and I can probably change this out for something else, but at the very least, I think it works. So there's some kind of placebo effect going on, even if it doesn't. But that's the build there. So we'll go over the test. As I said, the main reason I use her is just her 4. I can show off her 2 and her 3. But let's go like this. Spellbind will give me, so you see the buff in the top right. I have status immunity for another 20 seconds. Let's simulate these level 145 enemies. We cast 4. We turn into a little pixie. You always want to be moving around in this area. Oh, Bombard Rocket. Always got to be careful about Bombard Rockets. There we go. Bombard dead. But you essentially just fly around. It's like you're in a mini Arcwing. It's kind of cool. You can use her other abilities. You can see they're floating up in the air because I cast my 1. Cast my 2. Too far away. Cast my 2 here. We get a buff here. I don't know which one this is. Thorns. So we're doing reflective damage now. And kill that Bombard. Because he's going to kill me. As you can see, some survivability problems up at like level 140. But now the bombards are dead, I'm really not worried. There's nothing that's going to be able to kill me. The only reason the bombards can is that once you get much over like level 100, thereabouts, bombards will actually one-shot this build. So it doesn't scale particularly high with bombards around, but everything else, like, she can tank hits pretty easily. The reason she can tank the hits as well as she can, by the way, is when you're in your 4, you're harder to hit. You actually get an increased chance that they just miss their shots, which is quite nice. Also, I think everyone's dead. Yeah, everyone is. So as you can see, there's some problems surviving bombards when you get to higher levels, because that explosion is an AoE, so it's going to hit you no matter what accuracy they have. And if you get hit by one of them, it's essentially a one-shot with this build. I played around with potentially getting some more survivability by adding in, what's it called? Quick thinking? Yeah, quick thinking. The problem with that is you pretty much want to keep your... One, you're missing out on something else, possibly Augur Message maybe. But even then, it would take more Forma, and you would probably have to... You'd need... Steel Charge in here. You wouldn't be able to go full Umbral, that's for sure. So you are actually giving up... by putting the Umbral in, you're giving up some survivability at very high levels. Again, level 140 is above what the average person is going to be playing as, particularly as Titania. But bombards are still a problem for survivability. If anyone's got a build that is slightly better, more survivable at higher stuff, let me know. I had trouble finding one that would fit that allows you to keep survivability as well as being damage outputting. So you could kind of pick one or the other, and for most missions she survives just fine because nothing hits her. It's just bombards the only problem, and even then, they're only really a problem if they're high enough level that a bombard rocket will one-shot you. So there's that. But that's Titania. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you're not subscribed already, please consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching, and I shall see you next time.